My belongings were in garbage bags on the porch when I returned home for college break. Mom sent me an SMS. I got a new guy, so I'm sorry, honey. We like to be by ourselves. I didn't object. Instead, I did this. She was being handcuffed by the police 2 weeks later, not including the layover and the delay that had us stranded in Chicago for almost an hour. While they awaited approval, the journey lasted 5 hours. For the most part, I watched old comedies with terrible subtitles and dreamed of lasagna, more especially my mom's lasagna, which she used to make whenever I came home. It had been 5 months since I last saw her. I assumed there would be a lengthy embrace at the door, maybe accompanied by tears. "You've grown up a lot," or a tirade about petrol costs and how you don't get street smarts in college. Strangely, I was anticipating it all. Instead, I discovered a new lock on the front gate and hauled my baggage up the well-known walkway. My key didn't fit, and it was very glossy. I blinked, tried again, and jiggled it as if it would magically alter the key's cut. When that failed, I took out my phone and sent my mother a text. "Me! Hello! I'm present. The gates are locked." No response. I pressed the bell, waited. I was knocked, waited once more. Nothing. I saw the garbage bags at that point, lined up like a chore along the porch, 4 of them knotted at the top. Half done. I figured she hadn't remembered to remove them. I took care to avoid them. No answer as of yet. I went straight to voicemail when I phoned her mobile. I assumed she had probably gone asleep by now. Perhaps she had to get to work early. She may have visited the supermarket. I don't know, perhaps. Perhaps I was overly suspicious. I tried not to get irritated as I browsed Instagram while perched on the porch seat. 20 minutes later, I sent another SMS. "Me! Mom! Nothing." My phone rang with a message 5 minutes later. I felt relief initially, then bewilderment. "I'm sorry, dear. We replaced the locks. Do you have a new boyfriend? We like to be by ourselves." That was it. I gazed at the screen as though it may change into a coherent image. A follow-up message was sent. "A few days ago, I messaged you on Facebook." Facebook One hadn't used the app since high school. She might have transmitted it in Morse code instead. I gave her a call. The third ring was heard by her. "Hello, dear. I'm at the home, sweetie." I said, "I assumed you would contact me. Did you anticipate my arrival?" "Well, things have changed." I chuckled. Came out in a hollow voice. "The locks were changed by you. It wasn't intimate. Right now, Vince and I are the only ones that require room. This is where he will remain. We just want to spend time together without any interruptions, so it's been like our mini vacation." Distractions. And where am I meant to go? "Elise, I'm not sure. I take it you have friends. You might be able to stay with one of them. As I mentioned last week, the most of them are out of town." "Oh." "I did, however, put your belongings out for you. The porch is where it is." I took a look to the left. "The garbage bags. That's what I own." Brightly, she responded, "Yes. Yesterday I packed it up. A few books, mostly clothing. You don't require much, do you? You are here for a week only." A protracted silence ensued. "Elise." "Are you still there?" she asked. I ended the call. After that, I stood up and opened a bag. My senior prom framed photo, my sneakers, and my hoodie. I'm still broken from going to college. Everything had a subtle scent of betrayal and lavender dryer sheets. At that time, I didn't cry. As if I were going to drag my personal belongings to the curb and give myself to goodwill. I simply stood there with a trash bag full of them. In the end, I discovered a hostel, the kind with bunk beds, peeling paint, and a clerk at the front desk who appeared to work only at night to avoid people. I used the emergency card I kept hidden behind my ID to check in. I took a shower in one of those coin-operated stalls that make you question your decisions while blasting you with lukewarm water. I then pulled the sheet over my head, climbed into the lumpy bottom bunk, and made an effort to act as though I was camping. Ironic. I went to check my college fund the following morning to see how long I could afford to live in a dignified state of homelessness. There was no balance. I closed the tab reopened and refreshed the page. Still zero. The fund had been my lifeline. It came partially from my grandfather's inheritance and partially from 3 years of tutoring rich kids who thought AP chemistry was the name of a boy band. I'd scrimped and saved and skipped every non-essential meal in high school to make that account grow, and it was gone. I just stared at the screen, at the little dollars point zero zero, like it was taunting me. My hands went cold, and for the first time since I got back, I didn't feel angry. I felt scared. My mom has always believed in second chances and third ones and 15th if the guy had nice teeth and a halfway decent Spotify playlist. Growing up, it felt like every few months there was a new man in our lives. New man, new rules. One wanted me to call him Dad. Another insisted I leave the room whenever he was watching TV. A third gave me unsolicited advice about my posture. That one didn't last long. Mom dumped him when he said the couch was ugly. It was a cycle. She'd fall hard, rearrange our whole lives around whoever she was seeing. And when it inevitably fell apart, she'd swing in the opposite direction. No more men, she'd say. Just as girls. She'd binge-watch old sitcoms with me, cook dinner every night, and act like a sitcom mom herself for a few weeks. She cries sometimes ask me if I thought she was unlovable. Then, like clockwork, a new guy would appear, usually with a motorcycle or a deep V-neck. And suddenly, we were back on the merry-go-round. By the time I hit high school, I'd stopped waiting for things to stabilize. I got a job at a local bookstore, then another one tutoring middle schoolers. I knew if I wanted to go to college, I'd have to get there myself. Mom always said she wished she could help. But between rent, groceries, and her deeply unfortunate taste in men, there was never anything left. What made it possible in the end was my grandfather. My mom's dad. He didn't say much, but he saw more than he let on. When he passed away during my junior year, he left me a college fund, $40,000 to $1,000 in a savings account set up in my name. I added about $8,000 of my own over the next year and a half. It was enough to cover my tuition and most living expenses if I stayed careful. The account had been open for a long time. My mom had the password from when I was still a minor, and I never changed it as I trusted her, because I wanted to believe that deep down she'd always be on my side. Spoiler, she wasn't. The morning after I arrived home to trash bags and betrayal, I didn't sleep in the hostel bed, was itchy, and my brain wouldn't shut up. At some time between morning and my third instant coffee, I logged onto my account. I wasn't even sure why. Maybe I wanted to confirm that anything in my life still made sense. The balance was $0. I blinked, hit refresh, checked the transaction history. It was gone. All of it. Every dime. No fraud alert, no unlawful activities, just transfers initiated from the associated device, which of course was her phone. I didn't weep. Not straight away. For the most part, I felt foolish, like irrevocably, cosmically dumb. I gazed at the screen as if I looked long enough, it could change. As if there had been a bank mistake. I could have signed into the incorrect account. Then I realized who had the password, who had told me she was proud, who had hugged me goodbye as I departed for college. So happy. Unlike me at your age, you don't have to worry about money. I gave her a call. It went to voicemail after 4 rings. There was no message left by me. On the 6th attempt, she answered when I phoned again. Elise? Hello, dear. As if we were reuniting after brunch. She remarked. How is your adjustment going? The balance was visible to me. I said that my voice sounded strange, like if it weren't mine. Everything is gone. Silence for a beat. You mean the account I see? Yes. The one you should not have touched. Elise. She said my name as if it were a sigh. Be less theatrical. It is still there. It's simply knotted up. What does that signify? We use a portion of it for a little excursion. Only a brief one. On a cruise, Vince got this amazing offer. He took a vacation with it. Not just that, we're remodeling the kitchen as well. Work was required. Additionally, Vince's pal has a fantastic contracting company. He offered us a fantastic deal. Additionally, the house's worth will increase significantly. Thus, Mom really what I used that money to pay for college. I contributed my own money to what Grandpa had left for me. I understand, honey, but Vince will reimburse you. Everything. In terms of cash flow, he is now quite constrained. The majority of his funds are invested. You are aware of how these things proceed. No, I stated that I don't. I also don't give a damn. Now I want it back. You're being crazy, Elise. I couldn't believe she was doing this again, which is why I laughed, not because it was hilarious. Guilt-tripping and spinning things, claiming that I am to blame for having limits. I am exhibiting hysteria. I was stolen from by you. Oh, please. What a powerful term. I took it from someone. You didn't inquire. I didn't believe I had to. My daughter is you. No, I am an adult. I owned that money. You took money out of the account without authorization. It's stealing. Her voice shifted. Don't speak to me in that manner. I will speak to you in any way I want. Because you're not behaving like a mother at the moment. You're behaving like a burglar. The line was silent for a long time. At last she spoke. All right. I'll speak with Vince. I'll return it. Are you happy now, No? When it's in my account, I'll be pleased. Every single dime. You'll succeed, she whispered. Quit behaving like the end of the world is imminent. She hung up after that. With my phone still in my hand and the screen gone black, I sat on the edge of the hostel bed. I had a racing heart. Not out of anger alone, but from something more profound. Something colder, someone had crossed a line. And I was aware that there was no turning back even then. She had made up her mind. I needed to create my now. I gave her 3 days. Not because I actually believed her, but more because somewhere in the fossil record of our relationship, there was a glimmer of hope that for once, she may act morally, without having a complete breakdown to set it off. I kept refreshing my bank account for 3 days, as if it were a group chat that was about to explode. Nothing. I sent her one SMS. Any new information? It's being handled, she said. Whatever that meant. On day 4, I inquired once more. She didn't respond this time. I sent her a longer message on the 5th day. I require a schedule. I have tuition, rent, and bills. Please let me know when the money will be returned. She kept it set to read, so I called on the 6th day. Her tone, which she always uses when she knows she's wrong, but hasn't yet decided how to spin it, picked up. I'm actually in the middle of something, Elise. All right, I'll be brief. I want my money returned. I've waited. She let out a sigh. It's being handled, I told you. When his next investment comes in, Vince promised to take care of it. Did you ask him? Hold on. We discussed it. Vince, did you say that you must reimburse my daughter for the $48,000 I took from her? Or did you only remark in passing that you don't have a lot of money? Quiet. I believed I had stated that. Don't start with the drama, at least. I can't tell you how difficult this year has been for me. You're correct. I was too busy saving every dime I had, working 2 jobs, and attending classes full-time. I knew you couldn't assist me. God, oh God, I wanted to assist you. Her voice rose as she said, Do you think I liked seeing you struggle to survive? Every time I saw you working those pointless shifts at the grocery store, I started crying. He remained silent as you stole the money. I refused to accept it. She lost her temper. It was reachable. Furthermore, I didn't spend it on drugs or anything. I was for us and the house. Vince and I were organizing a lovely event. I genuinely laughed. Do you find this amusing? She lost her temper. No, I said, I find it pitiful. My money wasn't merely spent by you. Grandpa's money was wasted by you. For me, he went. Not Vince, not you. She fell silent. Illis, I am your mommy. And now it's my responsibility to figure out how to continue attending school. You have no idea how difficult this is. Just have faith in me. No. What I'm not trusting you, Mama. I no longer have faith in you. She remained silent for a while. You'd really do this to me, she added. I raised you after all I've done for you. You tossed everything away after I sacrificed everything. For a man who is most likely currently using someone else's money to plan his next gorgeous remodel. Elise, I'm heading to the police station. She chuckled. You're not being serious. Yes, I am. Will you file a report on your own mother? Indeed. God, you are so unappreciative. I'm just sick of being the idiot you know. She ended the call. After a few moments of sitting, I launched my notes app and copied the texts she had sent me, the one in which she acknowledged accepting the money. She claimed that Vince would take care of it. I took a screen grab of my bank records. I sent a picture of the old check I deposited after my grandfather passed away, the one designated exclusively for Elise's schooling. I then made my way to the closest police station on foot. Took a long time. There was no appointment for me. I waited behind a man with a noise complaint and someone reporting a stolen bike. I pondered whether I was going to turn like that girl as I sat there with my rucksack in my lap, going over everything 10 times. At family picnics, some folks whispered a warning story. Recall that the officer I spoke with didn't blink when Elise gave her mother over to the police. "Do you have any documentation?" he inquired. "Yes," I said. I gave him everything. He read it from cover to cover. "Was this fund in your name? Indeed. Was there a power of attorney she possessed?" "Only the password, please." He gave a nod. "All right, that was it." No dramatic gasps, no grandiose statements. Just, "all right." My phone rang 3 days later. She was the one. "You reported me to the police." My mother lost her temper. "No." "Hi there." "No." "Hold on. What's wrong with you?" I waited a moment or two for the stillness to subside. "I requested that you reimburse me." "I said—" "You promised to. Then you didn't. We were working on it, as I mentioned. Vince has a strategy. He is in charge of organizing everything. The house's value will increase significantly as a result of the modifications. You will receive your money back, plus more." I responded, "You sent $48,000 to a man I hardly know. And it's gone now. There is no contract, no receipts, and no timetable. It's not a strategy, it's a risk. Why do you act so aloof?" Her voice rose as she said, "This house used to be your favorite. You want it fixed, don't you?" If we paid up ahead, Vince claimed he could do it for half the usual cost. So I did just that. I was attempting to assist both of us. "You didn't inquire." "I said, you took it. God forbid." She interrupted herself. "This is being exaggerated by you. Are you even aware of what you have done?" Margot was sobbing as she left me a message when Uncle Joe phoned me this morning. "They believe you are insane." I told them everything. All of it I inquired. She didn't respond. She went on. "I told them that you may have simply been overburdened by the amount of strain you've been under recently. I stood up for you, Elise." "You weren't yourself," I remarked. "That's the only explanation that comes to mind. Otherwise, this would be harsh." "I'm not overburdened." "I'm done," I said. She fell silent, for a moment only. Then she changed her strategy. "Will you actually subject me to a legal investigation?" "The money she requested is already being processed. They're not dealing with it." I said that it's being ignored. Her voice was now trembling as she replied, "You'll regret this." "I swear to you that I will not receive a portion of your dream flip. When everything is finished, the house is worth twice as much, and the work is over." There was more stillness as I replied, "I want the money that Grandpa left me for school." I could hear her breathing now, though. I responded, "I'll let the police handle it if you're not going to fix it." She said, "You don't have to do this." Vince responded, "Please just give me a little more time." "Next, ask him." "For genuine this time," I said. The connection didn't die, but she didn't respond either. Just that hollow, squishy place where hatred develops from guilt. I ended the call. After I submit the police report, I would really like to mention that. As soon as the situation was settled, someone jumped in, saw the text, the receipts, and the empty account, and declared, "Yep, open and shut." However, that isn't how it operates. Not for folks like me, who don't have a family name that carries weight or attorneys on rapid call. Nevertheless, the news sparked an actual inquiry. According to my aunt, who learned about it from a neighbor who saw it on Facebook, things began to fall apart at that point. My mother was not subtle about it. The cops did not just arrive. She was preparing for a night of wine and charcuterie with Vince when they arrived. That's the name she gave it. Thursday is what I call it. They had questions. Normal things. She had the option to comply. He had the option to remain calm. Instead, she became enraged and accused them of spoiling her night. Claimed that the handcuffs were put on because her daughter was acting hysterically over a few bucks, and in a stroke of pure inspiration, threatened to sue the department for harassment. She wasn't taken into custody. She was cuffed for protection while they verified her identification and gathered statements, but they didn't charge her that evening. And the humiliation was awful based on her crying voicemail the next day. Which was the voicemail's purpose, of course, to make me feel bad, not to explain or apologize. I said, she said, in front of your lover, have you ever experienced being treated like a criminal? She didn't lie, instruct me to sleep on the sidewalk like it was a small inconvenience, or deplete my education fund. The horror of the handcuffs, you know. When I didn't answer, she escalated. After we hadn't seen one other in years, she began phoning relatives. My late grandfather's niece, old cousins, and second aunts once sent me a Christmas card with the incorrect name on it. Some of them reached out to me softly, while others did not. She is your mom. There is only one for you. She's experienced a lot. I considered ignoring it, but then I understood. Silence allows others to tell their own tale. So I was honest. Not in a big way. Not in caps lock. Simply put plainly. In the group chat for the wider family, I just posted one message. A bank statement, a few dates, and screenshots of her texts were all given. There was no commentary, just the facts. And it was sufficient. A few family members privately messaged me to say they believed me and that they had their own problems with mom. One relative even said that she recalled Vince making an odd remark about dividing up the family's riches, as if we were all investors in a trust fund for sitcoms. The commotion eventually subsided. The people who mattered had had enough, not because everyone agreed. The formal letter came at that time. She had to give the money back, or else she would be charged. I refrained from boasting. I didn't rejoice. I simply waited. That should have been the end. I wish she had simply given me the money back. That was the end of it. It was far from over, though. She paused and claimed to be working on it. Said Vince will arrive shortly. Remarked that perhaps we might compromise. I didn't answer. She stopped mentioning Vincent's a week later. I realized something was off because of this. It eventually surfaced in a series of meandering texts that resembled a confession and a breakup letter combined first in a tearful voicemail. Vince had left. The money for the renovations had gone with him. Permits were absent. No receipts, no contractors. He was claiming to be working for a corporation that did not exist. The number of the buddy, who was in charge of the permissions, was disconnected. Even the name he provided her may not have been authentic, she discovered. For a dream renovation that never got begun, she had given him close to $40,000. Before they could, he disappeared, even tearing down a wall. Suddenly, she felt more than just embarrassment. She was alone and broke. I didn't hear all of it straight from her, naturally. After sending me a meme about betrayal, she asked if we could chat. At 2 in the morning, send a text. She sobbed and left a voicemail when I didn't respond. I had no idea. I believed that he loved me. I believed that we were constructing something together. However, I had stopped serving as the safety net by then. She attempted to obtain a loan, but was unable to do so due to her pile of credit card debt and freelance work. She finally took the only action she could. The residence was remortgaged by her. A terrible loan, high level of interest, bad words. Before I realized that I hadn't demanded retribution, I was on the verge of feeling sorry for her. Only a reimbursement. I received $20,000 up front from her. The remainder would be paid for in installments. Imposed by law, recorded, 2 months later. The money is coming in now. Not straight from her. She most likely set up a third-party service, so she wouldn't have to input my name. Like rent, they arrive on the same day each month. I use them to pay for food and books. My future. She no longer makes calls. No chain texts, no voicemails. Memes about forgiveness are not surprising. She probably knows it won't work. My aunt claims that the renovations never got underway. Vince had vanished. The funds are no longer there. She was left with nobody to blame except herself, a devastated living room, and a predatory mortgage. I sometimes wonder what the tale sounds like to her. Perhaps I am the unappreciative daughter. He could have been her final chance at love. She may be the victim. But I stopped telling her a different version of her experience. I'm no longer her fallback, but her excuse, but her therapist. Only her creditor. She also avoids having to pay for her guilt this time. Just money. I sometimes question whether I was too severe. I didn't yell after all. I kept her name out of the fray. I just established and upheld a boundary. I still have some questions, though. Should I have been kinder, more gracious? Or did I finally take the necessary action? What are your thoughts? Was what I did appropriate, or did I go too far? Tell me in the comments below. Remember to press the notification bell and subscribe if you would like to see more articles like this one. Story 2. The fiancé of my brother grinned. Oh, you're only a fallback option, in case his actual job doesn't work out. The crowd burst into laughter as she spun the diamond ring I paid for. Except from me. Silently, I replaced my business card in my wallet. I exited the family group chat that evening, moved my assets, and gave my accountant a call. She opened an envelope with her name a week later. She discovered that the conversation had struck an uncomfortable law, the type that typically follows a poorly delivered joke. With a chandelier hovering over it like a costly threat, we were huddled around Megan's parents' enormous wood table, the sort that most likely cost more than my first truck. The discussion was carefully crafted to appear kind but never intimate. The platters were too large, and the wine glasses were excessively tall. Megan decided to attack just as I was cutting into my overdone steak. Leaning back, she turned the diamond ring on her hand casually with her manicured fingers. Luke claimed credit for the one I purchased. Megan had pushed my brother for a ring that genuinely shines, and it had cost me $12,000, a favor he had essentially pleaded for. Contrary to my better judgment, I had caved in, believing that I was only assisting him in purchasing some calm. Oh, she continued, her voice breaking over the clatter of plates. Nathan's just a backup plan. She looked at her mother, then at her father, who instantly smiled broadly and toothily. You know, her dad slapped his hand down on the table like a court pronouncing a decision, and roared with laughter in case Luke's real career doesn't work out. Both of them smiled as if they had just heard the joke of the decade, as her mother, who was already 2 glasses in, leaned forward to clink hers against his. Even Megan's younger sister, who had hardly taken her eyes off her phone during the night, smiled, her perfectly straight teeth gleaming in the light from her phone. Luke, who was seated behind me, simply went white. His jaw seemed to be twitching like he was gnashing his teeth as I saw his fingers tighten around his fork. He managed a wobbly, feeble laugh, the type you provide when you're in a tight spot. His gaze, however, was fixed on his plate. My own jaw tightened. My heartbeat accelerated, and my fingers touched my wallet, which had the fresh business card I had packed. I had intended to provide Megan's father with a proposal that would have reduced his operating expenses by 15% and provided him with a discount on the logistics of his small fleet. In actuality, it would have been a favor and opportunity to save his company from the steady financial decline. Through common acquaintances, I had learned about it. However, I now carefully retracted my hand, pushing the card more into my pocket. I took a leisurely sip of my wine, allowing the harsh taste to numb the bile rising in my throat, and just sat there, keeping my face deliberately blank. I excused myself after supper and hid before dessert. As I reached for my keys, Luke fired at me, ignoring the bewildered expression. The soft hum of the engine allowed me to reflect as I made my way back to my accommodation. I wasted no time at all. I started by calling my accountant and instructing him to transfer certain assets and freeze some accounts. I took out my phone and canceled the shared card after that. I would stupidly let Luke to use it in an emergency. To make sure everything was in place to safeguard my company, I even left a discreet message for my lawyer. If, as I thought, this issue blew out, I grinned grimly as I finally logged into the family group chat, the same one where Megan had begun to make overt references to destination weddings and honeymoon destinations, complete with price tags that made my head hurt as I flicked my thumb. I departed from the gathering. More than I anticipated, the young Nathan left a gratifying message on the chat window. Megan opened the envelope with her name a week later. Megan discovered one beautifully composed letter on thick cream-colored paper inside the envelope. It was a bill. I had broken down all of the costs, including the down payment for the beach property they had reserved for their honeymoon. Although I was aware that she would be incensed, I also knew that Megan was the kind of person who couldn't help but read mail bearing her name, even if it appears dubious. I added a sentence at the bottom that said, "Effective immediately, the joint card has been closed. Kindly make the remaining payment within 30 days. Legal action will follow failure to comply." For the first time, I could virtually feel her well-groomed nails sinking into the paper, while her face twisted in that unique type of shock that people like her reserved. They're told no. She didn't get back to me for several days. Luke wrote me a few texts, most of which were unclear. "Hey, did you leave the family chat?" is common. "The card didn't function," Megan added. "I choose to disregard them." Soon enough, he would figure it out. Then my phone rang on the fourth day. The caller ID caught my attention. Luke was the one. After hesitating, I pressed the answer button and reclined in my chair while admiring the beautiful skyline outside my office window. His voice was strained when he said, "Hey, man." In the distance, I could hear Megan's voice, a piercing, irate buzz that sounded like a bug in his ear. "Has the shared card been closed?" I waited for a moment. It was time indeed. He paused, presumably attempting to take in the directness of my response. "Nathan, what is happening on Megan is going crazy. She claimed to have received a bill from you." I tapped the edge of my desk with my fingertips as I leaned forward. Yes, I did. I decided it was time to make some corrections. The pause was long, the type that drags on, and isn't comfortable. Megan's voice rose like a storm in the background, and I could hear it. Clearly, she was not accustomed to being interrupted. "Look," I said, interrupting him, "you requested my assistance with the ring." "Yes, I did. You requested payment of the honeymoon deposit from me." "Yes, but Luke, I'm not your piggy bank. She has expensive taste, but that doesn't mean I can keep covering for you." He drew a long, tremulous breath. "However, dude, you are aware of her personality. All she wants is good stuff. It is. She is a part of it." "Yes, and you're dying of it." Feeling my own fury rise, I fired back. "When was the last time you made a purchase for yourself without considering her reaction? This cannot continue. Furthermore, I won't be your financial security net." Megan's faint screams in the background were the only sound to break the quiet for another moment. There was a bang of a door. Then Luke's voice returned more strained and quieter. "All right," he murmured, his tone finally cracking slightly. "I'll figure it out. Please don't do anything insane." Without saying another word, I hung up. I wasn't finished. I wanted him to suffer the consequences of his choices, but it seemed unlikely. He needed to see Megan now, for who she truly was, and I had a strategy to ensure that he did. The timing of the following punch was perfect. The chance merely fell into my lap after I had been sitting on it for some time, waiting for the appropriate time to twist the knife. My mother called me a few days later. She said in a worried tone, "Would you be able to visit this weekend? Mason Luke has to be discussed." I understood the purpose of this. I had observed the fissures developing. Luke had withdrawn from our parents and acted aloof, most likely too ashamed to acknowledge how far he had gone. My mother greeted me at the door when I got to my parents' house on Saturday. She furrowed her brow in concern. My dad was seated at the kitchen table, looking into the middle distance, with both hands and a coffee cup, as though he was attempting to figure out a challenging arithmetic problem. After I left, Mom shut the door. "Last night he gave us a call," sounded off. She paused as though she was trying to find the proper words. Screaming in the background was Megan. "Nathan, I think they're in trouble." I inhaled deeply as that old rage flared up once more. It was one thing to bring my brother down financially, but I knew Megan was a problem. Making him a shell of his former self was something else entirely. I put my keys down on the counter and replied, "Okay, it's time for some action." Later that day, I arrived without warning. Luke's apartment, that is. He had a messy hairstyle, black bags under his eyes, and a rough, unshaven appearance as he opened the door. It took me very little effort to get in. He staggered back, and the door sprang open, obviously taken by surprise. "Hey, dude, what is going on?" With a faint, trembling smile, he said. His eyes were constantly flitting to the closed bedroom door, and I could feel the tightness in his shoulders. Megan was most likely plotting at her next outburst from the other side. Small chat didn't worry me. I took hold of his arm and led him away from the locked door and toward the living room. I lowered my voice. "Let's discuss now, Luke." Rubbing his face as if attempting to awaken from a nightmare, he slumped onto the couch. "Regarding the card, I promised to work things out." After taking out my phone, I swiped to a collection of screenshots I had saved specifically for this occasion. I let the first picture appear on my phone's screen after dropping it on the coffee table in front of him. The credit card statements were the ones I had taken out prior to severing the joint card. Luke leaned forward and sighed, his face growing paler with every word he read. He never disclosed that she would spend all of your money on designer purses, spa days, and VIP concert tickets, Luke. I spoke in a sharp, deep voice. Should I say my money until I shut it down at last? His hands began to shake as he gazed at the screen. I had no idea how bad it was. My tone hardened as I leaned in. Yes, it is. And if you keep your head in the sand, it will only get worse. She is taking advantage of you. And before you are 35, you will be destitute, divorced, and a shadow of your former self if you don't break it off. He appeared as though I had struck him. I nearly felt guilty. My pity evaporated, though, when I recalled how Megan had laughed that evening, her flawless white teeth gleaming as she made fun of me in front of me. As he massaged his eyes, Luke's voice grew ragged. How should I proceed? I inhaled deeply while squeezing my fists. Initially, you will chop them off. No more shopping trips or credit cards. You're going to quit allowing her to treat you like a child and start acting like an adult. He simply lowered his head into his hands and nodded. I feared for a second that he was going to pass out there, but suddenly, Megan emerged through the creaking bedroom door. When she noticed me, her eyes narrowed. Her voice was brimming with phony happiness as she responded, "Oh, Nathan!" I didn't hear you enter the room. I felt my heart accelerate as we locked eyes. I smiled thinly and narrowly at her. Oh, I was just in for a little family conversation. Felt that a clarification was necessary. Still shining on the coffee table, she froze her eyes, darting to the phone. Her well-manicured mask briefly slipped from her face as her jaw tightened, and then she pushed the charming fake grin back onto her face. Of course! She responded defensively, crossing her arms. Family is the most important thing. She didn't know what was going to happen. Megan stopped in front of the door. Crossed arms, like a cat that has just smelled something bad, eyes narrowed. She looked down at the coffee table's phone. Her eyes glowed from the damning images, and I noticed the first rift in her flawless exterior. I crossed my own arms, leaned back, and looked into her eyes without flinching. I made the decision to exert a bit more effort since the tension in the room seemed like a coiled spring. I was just reviewing some financial information with Luke. I remarked, sounding informal, as though we were discussing the weather. Megan's mouth tensed. Her well-preserved grin faltered somewhat. Money-related issues. She made an effort to appear unconcerned, but I could hear the abrasive edge in her voice. Yes, I answered, meeting her gaze. For example, you've been lavishing him with expensive handbags, spa days, and other small indulgences that you've persuaded are essential to living a decent life. Her phony grin went a bit too far as she cocked her head. Nathan, that is what lovers do. They help one another. I laughed dryly and without humor. Encourage one another. Megan, you've ran my brother into the ground and made him into your personal credit card. Because you're out there treating every business like your own private showroom, he's barely able to pay his rent. Luke's gaze darted between us as his head jerked up. He had a pallid face. He still hadn't put everything together, but I could see that the shock was beginning to pierce the mist she had cast over him. Megan's heels clicked on the hardwood as she walked slowly and deliberately into the living room. She pushed herself up to her full height, straightened, and smiled at me patronizingly. Nathan, you don't understand. You have to pay for a woman like me if you want to keep her. That's simply the reality. My jaw tightened, but I forced a slow, sarcastic smile onto my face. Yes, Megan, I understand. You believe you have everything worked out, don't you? That everything will miraculously work out if you just keep using him and pushing him. Her confidence flickered back as she rolled her eyes. This was his choice. He was aware of the situation. I lowered my voice to a low, cutting whisper as I leaned closer. No, he didn't, but he will soon learn the truth. Megan squinted her eyes. She drew her well-defined eyebrows together. What is the intended meaning of that? In an attempt to control my rage, I straightened my fingers and clenched them into fists. It indicates that I'm finished. I'm done paying for your way of life. I've had enough of treating you like a gift, and I've had enough of seeing my brother perish beneath your foolishness. With his head still in his hands, Luke made a little choking sound. I just saw a glimpse of genuine terror in Megan's eyes as they dart to his, and her face tightens. She may genuinely lose control, she was starting to understand. I waited for a while more, allowing her to perspire, and then I stepped back. By the way, you might want to see how your parents are doing. I spoke in a purposefully informal tone. Soon they ought to get a small surprise in the mail, something to tell kids that money isn't something that just happens. Her flawlessly manicured lips pouted a little as the wheels in her brain started turning, and I could see the color draining from her cheeks. I pivoted on my heel and made my way to the door without saying another word. I stopped long enough to glance over my shoulder and saw the expression of unadulterated terror that had finally crept into her routine, calm as ice. And Megan, too. With my hand on the doorknob, I added, "While you can make the most of your remaining credit cards, I'm going to shut you off now. Greetings from the real world." I let the door crash behind me as I went outdoors. As I made my way to my car, the cold fall there struck my face and let me let go of the remainder of my rage. I backed away without turning around, but I could practically feel the fire of her rage blazing through the walls behind me. Luke's window was partially obscured by the blinds when I caught a peek of it. Slumping on the couch was his shadow. I inhaled deeply, allowing the contentment to seep into my bones. I wasn't finished yet. By no means. I didn't anticipate the repercussions. My phone buzzed during a meeting with my operations manager 3 days after my brief altercation with Megan. I glanced at the screen. It was my father. During work hours, he seldom interrupted me unless it was an urgent matter, so I promptly excused myself and moved into the corridor. "Dad," holding the phone to my ear, I said. His voice was clipped and tight, as it often was when he was attempting to control his fury. "You might wish to see the house, Nathan. Megan's parents recently paid us a visit." A chilly, resentful smile appeared on my face. What my small present was not well received by them. He laughed harshly and without amusement. "Yes, they enjoyed it just as much as I had anticipated. An hour ago, they barged in and demanded to know why you were severing their future daughter-in-law's support. Their mother nearly hurled a vase in their direction." I laughed as I imagined my normally composed, forbearing mother throwing a ceramic face at Megan's perpetually arrogant, excessively tanned dad. "I'm en route." 20 minutes later, Megan's parents' SUV was parked at an odd angle as I came into their driveway, as though they hadn't bothered to tidy it because they were too upset. After taking a deep breath and allowing the crisp autumn air to soothe my worries, I made my way to the front door. In the living room, I discovered them. Tom, Megan's father, was pacing the floor like a lion in a cage. He had a deep, angry red face, Linda. Her mother was sitting on the edge of the couch with her fingers tucked into her high-end handbag, as though she was worried someone might try to steal it. My dad reclined against the wall, his arms folded, observing the situation as my mom sat rigidly in her favorite chair, Josette's arms crossed. As soon as I entered, Tom's head turned abruptly. Like a hawk detecting a rat, his gaze was locked on me. "You?" He stabbed me with a finger as he spat. "Do you believe you're accomplishing something mailing us these absurd invoices and severing Megan's cards?" I took my time, put my phone in my pocket, and let the door swing shut behind me. "Just paying off some debts?" I responded, maintaining a purposefully composed tone. "I've made the decision to quit supporting your daughter's extravagant lifestyle since she has been misusing my brother's money like a drunken heiress." With a shrill, gasping sound, Linda clutched her pearls in a way that, if not so tight, would have been amusing. Her voice trembling with anger, she said, "She's your future sister-in-law. Unlike some, you can't just cut her off." Her immaculately manicured fingers trembled as she searched for the phrase, "Freeloaders." I raised an eyebrow in offer. "Because she is just that." Tom stepped forward. His jaw clenched so tightly that I could feel the tension on his neck's tendons. "You little punk, pay attention." Pointing a big, hard finger at me, he snarled, "You have no right to dictate to my daughter how she should live. It is your brother's issue, not yours, whether he can afford her way of life." Anger flashed through me, but I smothered it, maintaining a very neutral appearance. "It's actually my fault. When she lives like a reality TV star by using my money, my contacts, and my family's tolerance." I take a step toward him and look him in the eye. I'm finished. Tom, the joint account has been terminated and the cards have been cut, and your daughter is welcome to come talk to me directly if she has an issue with it, rather than sending you both to my parents' living room to have a tantrum. Tom's expression grew glum. At his sides, his hands balled into fists. My father's eyes narrowed as I watched him shift slightly, prepared to step in if things became physical. But with a quick, angry gasp, Linda beat him to it. This is something you will regret. Her voice trembled with barely controlled anger as she snapped. Do you believe you can simply ignore her and go on Nathan? We're connected, strong companions. This will cost you money. I leaned a bit closer and grinned. Bring her. My voice was icy and low as I whispered. I hope you give it a go. Tom took his wife by the arm and almost pulled her to the door after they had been staring at me for a while, their eyes flaming with hardly restrained wrath. I saw them leave. For a long time, the picture frames on the wall were rattled by the sound of the front door slamming behind them. There was silence in the room. My mother's steady, slow breathing as she attempted to relax was the only sound. At last, my father relaxed his shoulders and exhaled slowly. Well, he continued, his normally austere look somewhat softened by a smile. That, I believe, went better than anticipated. As the adrenaline began to fade, I laughed and rubbed the back of my neck. Yes, but I have a feeling that this isn't the end. I saw Tom's SUV emerge from the driveway, leaving a trail of dust behind it as I peered out the front window. No, this was by no means finished, and I suspected that the following round would be a catastrophe. After 2 weeks, Megan's stillness seemed almost too wonderful to be true. However, I was aware that it wouldn't last. Individuals like her don't simply vanish. On a Wednesday morning, the storm struck. Halfway through going over a new partnership proposal at my office, my phone buzzed and Luke called. My finger lingered over the screen as I paused. Although I was tempted to leave it on voicemail, I had a gut feeling that this was the time I had been waiting for. To accept, I swipe. Hey, he murmured in a rough, strained voice. He was at a diner, and I could hear the slight clatter of dishes in the background. Is it possible for us to meet? I must speak. I accepted, and we decided on a tiny, peaceful pub close to my workplace. The sort of setting where the music was low enough for serious discourse without asking questions. I saw him right away as I entered. His hair was a mess, his tie was loose, and he was slouched in a window-facing seat, sipping a half-empty glass of whiskey. I sat into the seat across from him, and he looked up. With a mix of embarrassment and sorrow, his bloodshot eyes met mine. Megan went out. He spoke in a flat tone as though he was still in shock. I sat back and arched an eyebrow. Oh? He rubbed his hands together and laughed shakily and bitterly. Yes. 2 nights ago, she just left after packing, stated that, until I sort out my priorities, she would be returning to live with her parents. A glimmer of delight crossed my face, but I deliberately maintained a neutral attitude. What are your thoughts about that? He gave a headshake. His gaze fell to the table. I suppose I'm relieved. I was hurt. Furious. I have no idea anymore. Although I feel like a weight has been lifted, I also feel foolish. I gave him a gentle nod, allowing him to speak freely and express everything. She insisted that not enough effort was being made. I wasn't ambitious enough. He added, his hands closing around his glass, and I didn't care about giving her the life she deserved. But I was simply drowning the entire time. She continued to behave as though I was the issue while maxing up my cards and emptying my accounts. With his head in his hands and his elbows resting on the table, he leaned forward. I nearly asked Nathan to marry me, like really made a proposal. I was going to follow through. After letting it linger for a while, I leaned closer. However, you didn't. That's the crucial element. Before it was too late, you changed your mind. With a long, trembling breath, he slumped his shoulders. Yes, without her, I just don't know who I am. She gave me the impression that I was nothing without her and that I needed her. The same rage sprang up again, and I tightened my jaw. Luke, you don't need her. You didn't. For a short while, you just forgot who you were. He offered me a little sour grin as he glanced up, his eyes watery. Yes, I suppose so. Neither of us said anything for a while. I could see the wheels moving in his brain as he gradually came to terms with the fact that he had been caught up in someone else's web for years. In the end, he extracted a little velvet box from his pocket. As he passed it over the table, my heart skipped a beat. His hand was trembling a little. His voice was hoarse as he replied, "I can't keep this. You pay for it, I know. I swear I'll repay you. I will, but it could take some time." I felt the chilly weight of the diamond ring within the box as I took it up. I opened it, exposing the perfect dazzling stone to the overhead lights. It was the identical ring Megan had noticed, the same one she twirled so cockily that evening at her parents' table. Without saying a word, I placed it inside my jacket pocket and closed the box. "Don't stress over it." My voice was flat as I spoke. "Just concentrate on rebuilding. Luke, you have another opportunity. Don't squander it." He nodded slightly, his gaze returning to his drink. "I'm grateful for everything, dude." I simply nodded to him in understanding, then got up and gave him a single shoulder pat. "Luke, be careful." I could feel the cool weight of the ring against my chest as I left. I basically undid everything, and it was a stark, pleasant reminder. When I got to the sidewalk, I put my hands in my pockets and let the crisp fall air blow over me. The ring's jagged edges were digging into my palm. When I inhaled deeply, the stress at last subsided. Even though it was done, my phone buzzed once more as I got to my car. I frowned as I looked down and saw the name appear on the screen. Megan. I saw the name flash on and off as I let it ring for a while. My hand was vibrating and buzzing. I hit block and put the phone back in my pocket without thinking twice. My heart was calmed by my jaw. I was determined to keep it that way. It was over. Story 3. "You weren't invited," my mother hissed as she answered the door when I arrived home for the holidays. "This is exclusively for actual family, not letdowns like you." Without saying anything, I turned around. My sister texted a few minutes later. "Be less theatrical. You are aware that you are the issue here." I turned off all of the cards' canceled utilities frozen the joint account and grinned. I then learned that they attempted to embezzle my fortune. I therefore exacted my retribution. My voicemail was overflowing by morning, and the group chat was ablaze. "Hi everyone. Prior to starting today's video, I need your assistance. One of the greatest ways you can help us out is to subscribe, since we've observed the channel is losing some of its popularity. It's simple, free, and helps us continue to provide you with amazing content. Your assistance is much appreciated. Together, let's continue to build this channel. Many thanks. Let's begin the video now. Disposable account, since a few individuals in my life are aware of my primary. I'm still getting over this, which happened during the holidays. I need to get this off my chest since what my family did was really insane, but it will take a lot of words. Okay, let's start with some backstory, because this catastrophe didn't happen all at once. About 3 hours from my birthplace, I, a 29-year-old guy, handle warehouse operations for a logistics firm. It's not flashy, but it pays well, roughly $52,000 year plus overtime, putting me firmly in the middle class. I don't have much money, a dependable car, my own apartment, or anything fancy, but I'm doing okay for myself. But my family? The exact opposite is true. There is my 52-year-old mother, Linda, who hasn't had a legitimate job since my father passed away 4 years ago. Although she receives some Social Security, she mostly uses Facebook to whine about everything. When she feels like it, my 26-year-old sister Jessica works part-time at a nail salon, but she primarily relies on her boyfriend or emergency funds from relatives. Tyler, my 24-year-old brother, alternates between construction jobs and unemployment. He always finds a reason to miss work. This is when it becomes foolish. Mom contacted me in tears about her financial difficulties approximately 2.5 years ago. Dad was out of life insurance. The home needed repairs. She feared that all would be lost. I stepped up and opened a joint checking account to assist with bills because I was the eldest and the only one with a reliable source of income. When things grew tight, it was just groceries and utilities. Nothing fancy. My first error was that. You see, that's what I believed it meant to assist with costs. During difficult times, maybe $200 to $300 a month at most. I was unaware that I had just turned into their personal bank account. Jessica managed to obtain a debit card for the account within 6 months. Tyler persuaded my mother to add him on my credit card as an authorized user for usage in an emergency only. What about the expenses? Jesus Christ, the spending began right away. But I was working double shifts and insane hours in an attempt to save money for a down payment on a house, so I didn't realize it at first. When I saw money leaving my account, I would just believe it was the amount we had agreed upon. I believed Mom since she claimed to be in charge of the home finances. The second major error. Last Christmas should have served as the true wake-up call. I brought gifts for everyone in my car, spent about $400 in total, which at the time was a lot of money for me. As soon as I arrived, I sensed the strange vibe. I don't know, they were all behaving guilty like if they had been discussing me before I got there. Dinner was rather weird. Jessica continued bringing up the fact that I behave superior to everyone, since I work for a living. Tyler joked that since I live alone, I must be making a lot of money. When I attempted to ask about their lives or bring up family memories, Mom simply sat there and let it happen. They would respond with a single word and shift the topic. However, someone needed something the second. Jessica's auto loan. The phone bill for Tyler. I feel like family all of a sudden. I departed early that evening. I informed them that indeed I had to work the following day. Jessica rolled her eyes and said something along the lines of course you do. That ought to have been my cue to stop them there. Family, though. Because they're blood, you keep trying. I made the decision to try again this year. Perhaps things would be different. Perhaps they had matured a bit. I was off from work for 3 days. $300 was spent on a flight during the busiest time of year. About 3 weeks before my trip, I submitted them my itinerary. Silence on the radio. However, that is typical for them. They can't communicate well. Unless they have a desire. So I bring a 30-filer pie from this upscale bakery by the airport to the house. I'm thinking I might be able to make things better. For once, enjoy a wonderful Christmas with your family. I'm holding this pie while standing on the porch in my nice jacket. The door opens before I can even knock, and I'm really thrilled to see everyone. Mom is standing there wearing a sweater that I got her for her birthday 2 years ago. I recall it because she emphasized how considerate I was, and it cost me $70 at Kohl's. She gives me the look of someone attempting to sell her a vacuum cleaner door to door. You are not invited. I promise this is for family only. Time paused. Inside, I hear laughter and voices. The food is smelling to me. Costly cuisine, the sort of spread that is very expensive. She's also telling me that I'm not allowed to attend the Christmas dinner with my own family. I don't argue. I'm not a questioner. Like a zombie, I simply turn around and head back to my rental car. I've been thinking that there must be a misunderstanding the entire time. She might be experiencing a senior moment. Perhaps she didn't realize I was coming. My phone then buzzes. Jessica texted, "Don't be upset about it. You are aware of your own nature." Reality struck me like a freight train at that point. This was no error. They had purposefully left me out of their family Christmas plans, after 2.5 years of me financially supporting them. I sat in that rental car for 10 minutes just staring at the house. I could see people moving around in side shadows in the windows, my family having Christmas dinner without me. And that's when I stopped being sad and started getting pissed. I drove to a Wendy's about 20 minutes away and parked in their lot, ordered a combo meal I didn't want, just to have somewhere to sit and think. That's when I started really looking at my bank account for the first time in months. See, I'd been working so much overtime lately that I hadn't been paying close attention to my finances. I knew money was going out to help the family, but I figured it was just the usual stuff. Utilities, groceries, maybe some emergency car repairs. Wrong. So crazy incorrect. I started going through my checking account transactions and instantly recognized charges. I didn't identify many Amazon orders every week. DoorDash, virtually everyday Netflix. Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO Max streaming services. I don't even utilize a gym membership for Planet Fitness in my local town. I live 3 hours away and train at home, but it gets worse. I saw charges at Victoria's Secret Bath and Body Works, some boutique apparel store called Vintage Vibes Gaming, purchases on Xbox Live, Uber trips all over town. This wasn't emergency money. This was a lifestyle I was sponsoring without even knowing it. I contacted my bank right there in the Wendy's parking lot, requested them to email me statements for the joint account going back 2 years. The customer support person was incredibly helpful, stated they'd send everything within an hour while I waited. I began recording a voice memo on my phone, simply explaining what I was learning and attempting to make sense of it all. Sometimes you have to say things out to make them seem genuine. All right, so on Tuesday, there was a $89 charge at a restaurant named Bella Vista. I was working 2 shifts on Tuesday. I was out of town. Who in heck is spending my money on dinners that cost $89? Before I finished my fries, I received an email with the bank statements. I'm talking about 47 pages of transactions, people. Holy shit. Financial history spanning 2 years that I obviously didn't know about. In my mind, I began classifying all of the invoices I had pledged to assist with in an emergency. They had inquired about random items they had purchased without asking. It was a crazy ratio. For each $1, I deliberately consented to assist. I had never heard of the other 5. This is when it really got to me, though. On December 15th, I discovered a $127 charge at a liquor shop. Since Dad's death, my mom has abstained from drinking. Therefore, either they were purchasing pricey alcohol for their Christmas party, or she acquired a covert drinking problem, the Christmas gathering to which I was not invited. As I dug more, I discovered additional party-related costs. Holiday catering products cost $78 at a posh supermarket shop and $43 at Party City. 150 sous for what seemed to be appetizer plates at a restaurant named Gourmet. They informed me I wasn't welcome after using my money to create a Christmas party for themselves. I recorded another voice memo. I believe I have been paying for my own alienation from the family. That's very amazing, and it's really freaking out. I stayed in my hotel room for the following 2 days. Yes, I remained in town solely to deal with this problem. Spreadsheets were created by going through each statement with a fine-tooth comb, since obviously I'm that man now. But to be honest, I couldn't believe how horrible it was until I saw everything all put out. $11 to $847 in total over 28 months. Those are not the bills that were agreed upon. That just includes the unapproved items. They spent money on stuff they never informed me about without asking. Jessica alone had spent $400 on Uber journeys to an unknown location restaurant, meals, clothing, and cosmetics. When she bothers to show up for work, she makes maybe $800 a month at her manicure salon job. However, she was living as if she had $50,000. Even terrible was Tyler. The charges total $4,600. Fast food and gaming mostly. This guy said he couldn't afford his vehicle payment, yet he was still spending $60 on games. The same week he begged me for food money, he purchased a $300 gaming headset. Mom, however, was the true victor. $2,900 in sporadic transactions, including many charges at unfamiliar eateries, and $400 at a home decor store. Apparently, a lot of pricey meals and ornamental throw pillows are part of the mourning widow experience. I was unable to identify the mysterious charges that accounted for the remaining $147. But this is what truly annoyed me. I compared the dates to the texts we exchanged. They would always seek me for assistance with a certain task. They would buy random things with double that amount. The same week, similar to Jessica's October SMS message to me, would you be able to assist me with my rent? I'm panicking because I'm $250 short. Since I'm not a monster, I sent the money right away. However, she spent $180 at Sephora and $90 at a hip downtown restaurant for supper that same day. In September, Tyler contacted me to tell me that his car was making strange noises and that he needed $300 to fix it. It turns out the same week, he bought a new TV for $350. They were lying to gain my money, not simply stealing it, then making me feel bad for not contributing more while squandering money on luxuries. I inquired about obtaining fraud protection for each and every account when I phoned my bank once again. I was asked by the person whether I wanted to report the unlawful use to the police. Not yet, I said, although I was curious about my possibilities. I then gave a lawyer a call. I came across this man online who focused on family law and financial fraud. Called him and told him the entire story. Something he said has stayed with me for a while. Because they are skilled at manipulating your affection for them, family members give you more pain than strangers. Oh no. That struck a new chord. He added that I could be able to file criminal charges for financial fraud even against family members, provided I could demonstrate that the charges were unapproved, which I could do because I had all of our text exchanges. Although I wasn't yet prepared to go that far, knowing that I had choices was helpful. The day after Christmas, I took a plane home and used the weekend to figure out what I should do next. Not precisely retaliation, but repercussions. Isn't there a difference? I have experience with meticulous planning because I work in logistics. You recognize the issue, compile information, create a solution, follow the strategy, and keep an eye on the outcomes. Fundamental issue with process management. My family had been treating me like an outsider and stealing from me for more than 2 years. Information. Unauthorized charges totaling $11,847. Known falsehoods. Manipulation pattern. Answer. Terminate all financial access right away and forever. I began by phoning each business where autopay was enabled on my accounts. Everything was canceled, including insurance, credit card payments, and utility providers. Everything takes effect right away. After that, I gave my bank a call and asked them to freeze the joint account while they looked into fraud. I informed them that I required all activity since several persons had been making unlawful charges. Paused while I fixed the problem. I then got in touch with each of the 3 credit card providers and asked them to deactivate any cards that had extra authorized users on them. The cards of Tyler and Jessica. Dead. Mom's emergency contingency plan. Lost. In order to reverse over 3 years of financial abuse, the entire procedure took almost 4 hours divided between Monday and Tuesday. I kept what I was doing from them. They assumed they will learn soon enough. They certainly did. Around 2:00 p.m. on Wednesday, my phone began to ring. Jessica, initially. Hello, Target refused my card. There is a problem with the system. I let the voicemail go. An hour later, Tyler phoned. The bank informed me that there was an issue with the account, dude. Could you give them a call? Voicemail. Then Mom called. Someone may have hijacked our bank account, honey. Not a single card is functioning. Voicemail 2. I had 15 missed calls by 6 o'clock, and the family group chat was going crazy. Is there anyone else whose cards aren't working? Jessica, Tyler? This is very strange. There's clearly a problem. My material isn't getting through. Mom, my card was refused when I attempted to pay for groceries. This is really humiliating, Derek. My cousin is out of state. Have any of you given the bank a call? We've been attempting, Jessica, but they just state that the account has been locked for security. While eating Chinese takeaway that I had paid for with my own money from a private account that no one else had access to, I watched it all happen from the comfort of my couch. I wasn't even upset anymore, and it was like watching dominoes fall slowly. I felt content. At last, I'm content. Panic hit Thursday morning. Panic, real panic. When I woke up, my voicemail box was filled, and there were 31 missed calls. Overnight, there were 127 unread messages in the family group chat. It seems that about 8 a.m., the electricity was turned off at Mom's house. They had already been late enough times before the automatic payment that I had been covering for 3 years failed to process. They were just disconnected by the utility provider. It's unbelievable that this is taking place just before New Year's, Jessica. Tyler. It's frigid at Mom's place. Everything is off since the heat is electric. Mom. I have no idea what's going on. Why would they cut the electricity? Derek, my cousin. Hold on. The energy bill has been paid by whom? Long silence in the conversation. That's Jessica. That isn't significant at the moment. We must find a solution to this. Derek, however, was not letting it go. Whose name is the account under? Really? Another lengthy silence. Look, Tyler, let's just concentrate on restoring Derek's power. Who pays your bills is a mystery to you all. I made the decision to have some fun at that point. For the first time since Christmas, I made a post in the conversation. My account's automated payment was stopped, thus the electricity is off. The same is true of gas, water, and the internet. All of them will be turned off in the coming days. After 5 minutes or so of complete silence, the conversation erupted. Jessica, are you referring to your account? Why are you covering your mother's expenses, Tyler? What's going on, dude? Could you please solve this? Call me Mom. Please, darling. This is probably simply a miscommunication. Derek. Wait, All of their utilities have been paid for by you. How long, me? 28 months. The average monthly cost is 487, along with food credit cards and whatever else they felt like purchasing. Derek, you don't need to make it sound like we're leeches or anything, Jessica. Me. What do you call it, Tyler? We are related. Family members support one another. The members of my family are also invited to Christmas dinner. Dead quiet once more. Hold on, Derek. What took place around Christmas? No one responded. So I did. Me. I spent Christmas flying down. Mom informed me that since it was for family, I was not invited. Discovered later. The meal I was not permitted to attend is paid for with my credit card. Are you serious, Derek? Are you serious? Derek's mother, my Aunt Karen, interrupted the conversation. Is that right, Linda? There was a miscommunication, Mom. Derek and I faced space constraints. Restricted area. Karen, it's your son. You bought a supper he wasn't invited to with his money. Jessica, that is not all there is to it. Karen, how complex is it? You either asked him or you didn't. Look, Tyler, this is going completely out of control. Derek, however, it seems like you guys have been treating him like garbage and exploiting him as a personal ATM. I uploaded the spreadsheet at that point. For days, I had been sorting through this spreadsheet, classifying each transaction by date, person, and category. In addition to being cruel, it was lovely. 28 months of data with clarity. 847 unlawful charges in total, broken down by individual, with particular instances provided. Jessica's Victoria's Secret highlight reel cost $78. She requested rent assistance that same day. Dinner at Bella Vista cost $156. 4 people in the party. Was she feeding anybody else? Apparently, it was $89 at Bath & Body Works. Toiletries for emergencies. In a week, there were 67 Uber journeys. The girl isn't even employed. The gaming headset Tyler's Greatest Hits cost $290. A week after requesting grocery funds, 2 or 3 times a week, $45 DoorDash orders are placed. Dick's Go Sporting Goods, $189. For a person who said they were broke, $134 in a single day at GameStop. Several deals. Mom's Unique Moments. At Home Goods, $387. The home must have required some decoration. 156 for 6 people at Olive Garden. Another party I didn't know about. A $89 wine buy for a non-drinking individual. At Sally Beauty, $67. It seems that mourning necessitates costly hair care products. I put everything in a brief message in the group conversation. This is the real destination of your family's assistance funds. Each charge has documentation and may be verified. I then banned all of their numbers and exited the group chat. However, I didn't block Karen or Derek. I was curious to know what came next. The following 3 weeks were completely crazy. Derek texted me to keep me informed on the whole collapse in my hometown. Power is still off on day 1. Jessica's flat was the only place Mom could remain. The additional renter didn't sit well with Jessica's landlord. At Mom's place, the water was turned off on the 3rd day. Tyler was also homeless, since he had been staying there to save money. Day 5. The automobile owned by Mom was repossessed. She was unable to pay them on her own, and it became out that I had also been making those payments. Jessica was eliminated on the 8th day. It was against her lease to have Mom remain there. They expelled them both when she was unable to pay the late penalties due to the loss of her backup financing. Day 12, Tyler lost his construction job because he missed too many days. Instead of working, he had been attempting to resolve the bank matter. Dude, your mom is sleeping on Tyler's friend's couch. Derek would give me his updates. A man Jessica hardly knows is the one she is staying with. This is crazy. Here's the problem, though. It didn't make me happy. I wasn't reveling in their suffering. All I was neutral. Like looking across the street at a house burning. I'm sorry it occurred, but it's not my issue. Derek then sent me something that chilled me to the bone on day 18. Sometimes your own children leave you when you need them most, as Mom said on Facebook. I'm praying for courage in these trying times. Please tell me if you know of any inexpensive housing options or if you can assist with expenses. The remarks were harsh. What happened? Family friends ask, extending assistance. I'm looking for specifics. Mom was also doing a great job of portraying the victim, going through a difficult time, drama in the family, attempting to maintain a cheerful attitude. Not a word about the $11.847. The falsehoods are not mentioned. Christmas is not mentioned. I became aware that they were not learning anything at that point. They refused to accept accountability. All they were looking for was someone new to control. I thus tagged them all in my own Facebook status update. For anybody curious about my family's difficult time, I found that they had been fraudulently using my bank accounts and credit cards for more than 2 years, spending about $12,000 on unnecessary things while pretending to be in need of assistance with basic expenses. They informed me I wasn't allowed to the Christmas meal I had mistakenly paid for when I challenged them about it. I have ceased all financial assistance and communication. They are not homeless because of uncontrollable circumstances. They have to deal with the repercussions of their decisions. I've included the spreadsheet. The consequences were dramatic and quick. Friends and family began to leave comments. God damn, $12,000. And is this accurate, Linda? Furthermore, how could you harm your own son in this way? Mom made an effort to reply. This is a personal family issue that is being exaggerated. However, Uncle Jim said, I've seen the proof, Linda. This hasn't been exaggerated. Karen Derek's mother posted, the way my sister would treat her child disgusts me. Mom removed the initial post after 6 hours, but screenshots are permanent. And my comment had already been circulated by a number of family members. I received a call that night from an unfamiliar number. Something forced me to answer when I nearly didn't. Don't hang up, please. Jessica was phoning from a different phone. Jess, what do you want? We must speak. Every one of us. Could you please just... We can drive up there, or you may come down here. There is nothing to discuss. Yes, there is. This is something we can resolve. We are able to reimburse you. I genuinely laughed. How much money? You're unemployed. We'll find employment. Actual jobs. We'll pay. At the minimum pay. Working full-time. You would have 3 years to repay the theft. Assuming you didn't spend any additional funds, that is. Don't refer to it as theft. What do you call it? Quiet. Then Jessica said something that chilled me to the bone. Look, when you come down, we can talk about the house problem. What is the situation at home? Another lengthy silence. Too much time. Jessica, what is the situation at home? I assumed you were aware. Did you know what regarding Dad's land? He left the land. My heart began to race. Which land? Dad was a landless man. The cabin is on 40 acres up north. The earth seemed to be moving under me. Dad owned 40 acres. Did Mom not inform you? No. She's freaking out. Didn't inform me. I need you to tell me what you're talking about right now, Jessica. Dad received the farm from Grandpa Joe. The family has owned it for around 50 years. Since Dad passed away, Mom has been in charge of all the paperwork. Jessica wondered whether I was still there because I had been silent for so long. You learned about this property when it has always been known to us. Mom said, you know, I believe. I've never heard of any real estate. Not once. Jessica fell silent once more. She had panicked out, and I could almost hear it. Jessica, does Mom intend to sell this house? I am unable to. You should discuss this with your mother. Does she intend to sell it and divide the proceeds between Tyler and you? Come down, please, so that we can all. I ended the call. I had trembling hands. I phoned Derek right away. Derek, are you aware of any properties up north? Dad left 40 acres. Oh, fuck. Did you know, Derek, that she didn't tell you? Yes, dude, I apologize. I assumed you were aware. It has always been in the family. Your father bequeathed it to all 3 of you when your grandfather passed it on to him. All 3 of us, yes. Equal portions, a third each. I was ill. How much is the property worth, Derek man? It has a good cabin and road access. This market is close to the lake. At least $180,000, if not more. $60,000. My portion would be $60,000. Has anybody spoken about selling it, Derek? Your mother has been inquiring about real estate with relatives. According to agents, she planned to sell off her father's possessions to pay off debt. I phoned my lawyer soon away after I started inquiring around in November. just before they determined I wasn't family enough for Christmas dinner. Please investigate a property in my father's name and let me know if any sales or transfers are still pending. He returned my call 3 hours later. All three of your children received equal parts of the property from your father. However, because of her financial irresponsibility and family strife, your mother filed documents in December asserting that she had power of attorney over your share. Is she capable of doing that? No, not legally. She could have been able to get it through, though, if you were unaware of the property and didn't challenge it. Fortunately, nothing has been decided upon yet. What must I accomplish? To challenge the power of attorney, file a claim right away. You'll likely receive a restraining order on any property sales. I then understood that this was more than simply the money I had been providing them. This involved depriving me of a $60,000 inheritance and using my own funds to support them until the transaction was completed. They were scam artists, not only robbers. After visiting my lawyer's office, I gave Jessica a call back. "Hello," she murmured with a hopeful tone. "Jessica, I recently learned that my mother submitted documents asserting power of attorney over my inheritance. Dead quiet. She informed us that you were aware of the property and were unwilling to deal with it. That is untrue. She said you couldn't manage property ownership because you were too careless with money. The irony was really amazing. I want you to carefully consider what you're about to say next, Jessica. Has your mother informed Tyler and you that you will split half of the property's sale proceeds?" She. "It would help us all get back on our feet," she remarked. "Every one of us. Or only you two more." Quiet, just. Only the two of us. It was there. Until the scheme was over, they had been using my money to sustain themselves while stealing my inheritance. "Look," she added, "you're ruining our lives over money, even though we recognize we made a mistake. Nothing is being destroyed by me. Simply put, I'm no longer financing it. Furthermore, I will not allow you to take my inheritance. Mom is dozing off on a couch. Tyler lives in his vehicle. And who is to blame for that? If you wanted to, you could solve this tomorrow. If you had told me the truth about everything, you might have avoided this whole situation. Please, more silence." Her voice broke as she said, "We are related. For 2 years, family members don't tell lies to one another. During Christmas dinner, family members do not exclude one another. Family members use their money to get by, but they don't try to steal from one another. We are capable of transformation. It's been 28 months since you changed. You're going to take from me instead. Please, please, please. We'll do anything." At that moment, I came to a significant realization. They have no apologies for their actions. They regretted being discovered. They weren't expressing regret for deceiving me, ignoring me, or using me. All they were afraid of was the collapse of their long-term scam. I continued, my voice colder than I had ever heard it. "Here's what's going to happen. You will hire an attorney to challenge Mom's assertion of bogus power of attorney. You will come clean about how she misled you and said that I was aware of the property. Additionally, you will ensure that I receive my whole 1/3 portion of that bequest." Jessica, I can't do that to my mother. She intended to use my money to keep you alive until the transaction was completed while stealing $60,000 from me. We were all played by her. She won't receive anything, though, if we can test it. In any case, she had no intention of giving me anything. Now I could hear Jessica sobbing. "How about we divide it 4 ways? Mom also receives something. Mom has no claim on the land. Dad didn't leave it to his wife but to his kids. Please. She is our mom. I'm your brother too. Didn't deter you from stealing from me." A long silence. "Jessica, are you really going to ruin our family because of this? The instant you decided I wasn't worthy of being invited to Christmas dinner, our family was shattered. While preparing to embezzle my wealth, all I'm doing is making sure there are repercussions. This will be fought. I wish you luck. I have a lawyer, proof of financial fraud that has been documented, as well as the original. Are you going to have a false power of attorney document?" I blocked that number too and hung up. I wasn't finished, though. Not even close. I headed to the courts the next morning and filed all of the documents my attorney had prepared. Contested the attorney's power, demanded a complete audit of the property's management since Dad's passing, and an immediate halt on any real estate transactions. After that, I took a completely nuclear action. When I updated my Facebook status, I learned that the financial theft in my family was only the beginning. Until the fraud was over, they planned to use my money to maintain themselves while stealing my $60,000 inheritance. Even though I was paying all of their expenses, my mother claimed in false power of attorney forms that I was reckless with money. My birthright was about to be stolen by the same folks who said I wasn't family enough for Christmas dinner. There is legal action underway. I tagged them all once more, plus every member of my family that comes to mind. The reaction was swift and vicious. Karen, how did you go so low, Linda? This goes much beyond theft, Uncle Jim. This is the ultimate kind of treachery. Derek, it's unbelievable that you would harm your own son in this way, Aunt Linda. Family friends also began to leave comments. This is repulsive. And how is your nighttime sleep? Uncle Mark, my dad's brother, who I hadn't spoken to in years, made the remark that really got to me. Your dad would feel embarrassed. All three of his children received an equal share of the land from him. The most abhorrent thing I've ever heard is that you would attempt to steal from one of them while he was providing for you financially. He did when I called a family meeting. After Dad passed away, Uncle Mark became the family's eldest male. People admired the power he possessed. The next weekend, he planned a family get-together. Only members of the extended family. Tyler, Mom, and Jessica weren't invited. For the first time since Christmas, I returned to my hometown and traveled down for it. Uncle Mark's house was the location of the gathering. Derek was present, Uncle Jim, my cousin Rachel, and Karen. I hadn't seen several of my great-aunts in years. Uncle Mark got up and read aloud from Dad's will. The property portion made perfect sense. I give my three children the address of my inherited property. Tyler James and Jessica Marie are my names, and they will split them up any way they see appropriate. Not a single mention about Linda. Uncle Mark didn't mention power of attorney at all. Your father was an expert in his field. Karen then raised her voice. I believe that everyone needs to know the truth about what actually transpired here. For years, Linda has used the generosity of my name, was preparing to embezzle his wealth. It's not a family argument. Criminal fraud is what this is. Uncle Jim gave a nod. While they want to rob him of his whole fortune, the child has been providing for the entire family. I discovered the full scope of their falsehoods at that point. Mom had apparently been complaining to the extended family for months that I was hard to get along with and wouldn't assist with family issues. She had been laying the groundwork for the idea that I was the troublemaker who shouldn't be trusted with money matters. In the meantime, I was essentially covering every aspect of their way of life. According to my great-aunt Helen, the worst thing is that they planned this without inviting him to Christmas. That is cruelty, not just stealing. Uncle Mark gave me a look. How would you like to handle this? My inheritance is what I desire. I want them to reimburse me for their theft. Additionally, I want kids to realize that decisions have repercussions. How about criminal charges? Eric was asked. I considered it. Yes, if they are able to challenge the audit or test my inheritance claim. Allegations of conspiracy identity theft and fraud. Uncle Mark gave a nod. All right. They made their decisions. A unanimous agreement was reached at the end of the family gathering. Until they made amends with me, Mom, Jessica, and Tyler were formally removed from any family support. Nobody would give them a loan, host them, or otherwise assist them. I hadn't felt that validated in a long time. I didn't recognize the lawyer, who called me 3 days later. Mom's last name is Linda, and this is Attorney Williams on her behalf. We want to talk about resolving the property issue. What sort of agreement? As initially planned, my client is willing to divide the land in 3 ways, in return for you not being charged with fraud. I chuckled. Terms for abiding by the law are not negotiable for your customer. Additionally, she is ready to start paying back the money you say was stolen. I make no assertions. I have written evidence. She wants to escape criminal prosecution nevertheless. Before she committed crimes, she ought to have considered it. How much would it take for you to think about letting this go? $11,847 in full payments plus interest. My entire inheritance free of conditions. And a formal apology, admitting that she had misled the family about me for years. That's a lot of work. Those are the results of her decisions. The next day, the attorney returned the call. Your conditions are accepted by my client. As simple as that. They were fully folded. I received a $12,200 cashier's check 2 weeks later. They sent me a 2-page handwritten letter from Mom, apologizing and confessing to everything as well as interest and legal possession of my one-third portion of the property. The letter was pitiful. Everything about her desperation and how she never intended for things to become this bad. Not a single comment regarding the emotional toll their actions took on me, just self-pity and excuses. I retained the property deed and the check. The letter was immediately placed in the shredder. Derek texted me the next morning. Yesterday, Tyler arrived at my place of employment and asked if I could lend him the money. Hell no, I told him. They're becoming desperate. Good, I said. Changes are made by desperate individuals. Derek informed me 3 months later that Jessica was working at a restaurant and Tyler had secured a full-time position at a warehouse. Mom was receiving food stamps and had sought for subsidized housing. Now they were grown-ups with lives. It was as simple as shutting off their limitless source of money. I didn't reply to any more communication efforts. I modified my phone number. I deleted them from every social media platform and carried on with my life. The best choice I've ever made. The money I spent to pay for their way of life. I used it as part of my down payment for a home. They'll never be welcome in my place. Particularly when they were constructed under false pretenses, certain bridges are worth destroying. Story 4. My parents chose to expel me after discovering at my 18th birthday celebration that they had spent my whole $200,000 trust money to support my crippled sister's shopping addiction. To set the scene, Corey, my sister, is Down syndrome. My sister is 4 years older than I am, and I have known since I can remember that she differs greatly from me, even as an infant. I saw that Corey frequently reacted strongly to every circumstance. She would wail and scream in a manner that most children wouldn't if things didn't go her way, even in tiny ways. She seemed unable to cope with the annoyance of things not going as planned. Corey had no pals when he was a child. She frequently came across as abrupt or even rude and struggled to read social signs, even if she wasn't being disrespectful on purpose. Other children who were unaware of her illness would find her directness off-putting. She felt alone as a result of the fact that many kids decided to avoid her. My parents, therefore, made it a point to include me in her social circle. She would frequently remind me that I should bring her along when I went out with my friends. I realized that they wanted her to have a social circle and feel included. I also didn't mind taking my elder sister with me at first. I believed that she would enjoy some companionship and perhaps even gain a few friends from my own social circles. It wasn't easy, though, to hang out with Corey among my buddies. She had poor social skills and found it difficult to blend in with others. She would frequently behave in surprising ways. She occasionally pushed or even punched other children, particularly if they gave her something she desired. As time passed, my friends lost interest in spending time with me if Corey would also be present. Since her conduct was unpredictable, they didn't want to cope with it, and to be honest, I could see their viewpoint. They were merely children who wanted to play unhindered by outside distractions or violent outbursts. I couldn't quite blame my friends for withdrawing from those situations because of Corey's impatience and propensity to lash out, which made things difficult for everyone. I'm aware that given her difficulties, it was my responsibility as her sister to help and be there for Corey. To be honest, though, I also needed room to develop, meet my own friends, and live my life on my own. However, my parents never let me be me. If I wanted to hang out with my friends or do anything without Corey, I would feel bad for ever considering leaving her behind because of them. They would suggest things like, "You should consider your career or sisters should stay together." Her sister. Regardless of what I needed or desired for myself, it seemed as though they expected me to constantly pick her over my friends or anybody else. The fact that they never appeared to focus these same efforts on assisting Corey in understanding how to modify her conduct or enhance her social skills made matters more difficult. They never took the time to explain to her how sharing and treating everyone with kindness may improve her relationships. Rather, they seemed to have accepted the fact that I would cover all the holes in her social life. I thereby unintentionally became Corey's lone buddy throughout the years. Please understand that I adore Corey. I know that none of this is her fault since she is family. I can't even begin to think what it must be like to be in her position since I am aware that she deals with her own unique set of difficulties on a daily basis. However, do you have any idea what it's like to be the family's unseen child? Every choice, strategy, and money my parents made was focused on making Corey's life a little bit simpler and more pleasant. Corey needs specialized care and ongoing attention. My parents have spent a lot of money on her several treatments over the years, such as occupational therapy to develop her motor skills and independent speech therapy to enhance her communication and physiotherapy to aid with her physical coordination. Additionally, she undergoes regular examinations, tests, and assessments to track her development and maintain her health. Although I fully appreciate the need of the significant and time-consuming care she requires, I sometimes felt as though there wasn't much place left for me. Corey faces particular difficulties because of her poor impulse control, which makes it nearly hard for her to comprehend boundaries. She is obsessed with the color pink, for example. She loves everything that is pink. If anything in that hue catches her eye. For her, it's like an immediate magnet, and she can't help but grasp it. Hold on to it and don't let go. Whether it's a teddy bear, a piece of clothes, a pink wallet, or even someone else's treasured belongings, it doesn't matter. She clings to it once she has it in her hands and will cry if someone attempts to take it away. Occasionally, even experiencing a complete breakdown. Many awkward situations have resulted from this tendency, particularly when we're in public. To get Corey to calm down, my parents frequently had to bargain with others, or even purchase these pink things from total strangers. I've seen them spend money on a variety of arbitrary pink items, sometimes things that are worthless to us, but are quite important to Corey at the time. I can see why they do it, and I know that it's more than simply a desire for her. She almost feels compelled to do it. However, I feel somewhat ignored as I see my parents spend so much time, money, and emotional energy trying to control her whims and provide for her needs. Additionally, there are severe repercussions from my parents' parenting style with Corey. Their method of maintaining her content over time has devolved into what I can only characterize as an addiction to buying. For Corey, it began simple enough. My folks used to buy her something pink every weekend, whether it's a toy, jewelry, or some other thing to keep her content, and in a sense to negotiate for her compliance all week long. Corey would readily comply when my parents told her that she had to be a good girl in order for them to grant her wishes. In our family, what began as a short-term arrangement quickly evolved into an enduring custom. These items are also not inexpensive. Many of the things that Corey desires are one-of-a-kind or personalized, which sometimes entails long-term high costs. I didn't really consider how much all these pink items cost. I simply thought my folks could afford it. Week after week, year after year, I never wondered how they could afford to continue this habit. But in the end, I found something I never would have thought of. My parents hadn't been accumulating money or creating a regular budget to cover these costs. To keep up with the growing expenses, they had started engaging in fraud. When I was born, you see, my grandparents established a trust fund with equal contributions for Corey and me. For the person with Down syndrome, Corey, her therapies and any other need were to be covered by the funds. However, I was supposed to utilize my portion to either purchase a home or attend college. My grandparents trusted my parents to handle the money carefully, but only they had access to it. In order for Corey and I to rely on this financial assistance, they also made sure we were aware of these trust funds from a young age. My grandparents gave it to me as a wonderful present, and I always felt secure knowing that the trust fund would be available when the time came. Since Corey currently lives with and is dependent on my parents, they have been in charge of handling her finances since she got her portion of the trust fund when she reached 18. As she's gotten older, her therapies and treatments have become more demanding, and they've used her trust fund to help pay for them. From funding the supplies she needs for everyday living to her medical treatment, the money has been helpful. I never questioned how the money was being utilized since I knew it was intended to meet her needs. Naturally, I anticipated receiving my portion of the trust fund when I reached 18. As promised, I already had plans for it. I intended to keep the remaining funds for any additional costs I might incur as an adult, after using them to pay for my college tuition. I had a clear plan for the future and was counting on that investment to help me create a solid foundation. I had no idea, though, that my hopes would soon be dashed. My grandparents celebrated my 18th birthday with a lavish party last week. When Corey turned 18, they had done the same for her. I have thus been anticipating my own celebration for a long time. Every member of the family had been invited. It was one of those days that just felt right, and I was truly content being among the people I cared about. My grandparents announced to the whole room after the cake was sliced. They expressed their pride in seeing me all grown up and heading off to college, and that's what they gave me for my birthday this year. The trust money they established for me years ago would be given to me. Everyone in the room cheered and applauded as they congratulated me on this wonderful present. I was overcome with delight and thankfulness as I gave my grandparents a heartfelt embrace and thanked them for everything. While everyone else was grinning and applauding me, I saw that my parents were the only ones who didn't appear joyful in the middle of all the excitement. My parents appeared largely unconcerned. They took a sideline position. They had tense, even uneasy looks on their faces. They exchanged eyes, and even though they remained silent, there was a discomfort about them that was difficult to ignore. I thought it was strange, but I was too busy enjoying the party to give it much thought. I wanted to take in the remainder of the festivities. Thus, I pushed it to the back of my thoughts. After we got home from the party later that night, I had a nagging suspicion that something was still wrong. My parents didn't chat much to me and were particularly tense. If they were concerned, it was usually about Corey, her condition, her attitude, or something she needed. However, Corey appeared very happy that evening, even playing joyfully with one of her new presents. I eventually questioned my parents if something was wrong, since I felt like there was more going on. My dad gave me a serious look at that point and said he and my mother wanted to talk to me alone. I was instantly chilled by the tone of his speech. I knew this was a serious matter. Before my dad started talking, they exchanged anxious looks as we sat down in the living room. As my grandparents had intended, he stated almost reluctantly that they would not be able to give me my trust fund. I first didn't get it completely, so I asked him to elaborate. My dad went on after that, as he acknowledged that they had spent all of Corey's trust fund on her over the years, and that since they had access to mine, they had begun using it for my trust fund as well. His voice was a mixture of remorse and resignation. He acknowledged with a heavy sigh that little anything remained for me after 90% of my trust fund had already been depleted. As I took in what he had just stated, I was shocked. The funds intended for my schooling and future were vanished. He continued by saying that the majority of money had gone into my sister's addiction to shopping and the several therapies she needed. I started to feel numb as his words took hold. My thoughts were racing, trying to figure out how this had occurred without my knowledge, and how they had funded Corey's spending and addictions out of my trust money without my consent. I questioned them about why they would ever subject me to such treatment. My parents started defending themselves at this point. They became defensive in their tones. They informed me that although caring for Corey has been expensive, they were forced to do it for her. She constantly prioritizes her needs. In addition to the innumerable presents she required each week to maintain her composure, my dad talked about the interminable costs, therapies, and treatments. I made the case that when they saw how expensive it was, they could have stopped purchasing her all those items. They did stress, though, that these things they purchased for Corey were more than simply frivolities. They were coping mechanisms for her. Things that, according to them, had been well worth the money, and that helped her navigate her environment a bit easier. Therefore, they couldn't just turn her away. I felt a wave of rage rise within of me at that same instant. Without even speaking to me, I questioned them about how they could possibly defend investing nearly all I owned on my future. Did they not care about me? In an attempt to soothe me, my father said I had to comprehend what they had been going through. He discussed the stress they were under, the compromises they had to make in order to care for Corey, and how draining it was to attend to her demands every single week. My mother nodded and said that Corey needed ongoing care because of her disability, which occasionally involved spending money in ways that might not seem fair to me, but were essential for her needs. They both believed that I had an edge over her because I didn't have any of Corey's ailments. Therefore, I shouldn't be being so avaricious about the money. As I informed them that I wasn't doubting Corey's needs or their choice to put her care first, a layer of annoyance poured down my cheeks. I also loved her, but this was about their dishonesty and how they had taken advantage of what should have been my future without ever considering that I should know. I explained to them that my only feeling of security had been this trust money, the one thing I believed I could count on to begin living on my own. And it was all but gone now. But instead of recognizing my feelings of hurt and betrayal, they began to gaslight me by reversing the direction of the conversation. They expressed their disappointment at my lack of understanding, saying that as Corey's sister, I should realize that sacrifices were sometimes required, and that in the end, we were all in this together. I was taken aback that they thought I would just accept everything like a fool and realize that Corey's needs had to come before mine. No inquiries were made. I questioned them about why it was never me, and always Corey. Did they not want me to live my life to the fullest? At this point, my parents continued to express a picture for my future that centered on assuming responsibility for Corey's care. They clarified that they never gave much thought to my schooling, since evidently it isn't that necessary. Instead, they wanted me to take charge of assisting them with Corey's needs, both emotionally and financially. My mother added, "You know we're getting older and it's exhausting looking after Corey," with a look on her face that was half resignation and half begging. "We need you to step in because we can't do this forever." She continued by saying that they didn't object if I attended a neighboring college rather than the one I had chosen. She only wanted me to get a steady job as soon as I graduated, so I could move in with Corey and give my parents a break. She also suggested that I start making money while I was still in college by working a part-time job and sending some money home to Corey. They said that Corey will be able to continue the lifestyle they gave her and gain some freedom by being able to purchase anything she desires. Feeling numb, I sat there attempting to understand what my parents wanted me to do. I felt completely misled and furious at that time. I had not envisioned this as my own future. My parents seemed to expect me to sacrifice my goals and aspirations in order to assume their role as Corey's caregiver without ever asking what I wanted out of life. I screamed at them at last. A mixture of hurt and rage that had been simmering for years made my voice tremble. "Have you ever considered my desires? Or is Corey the only reason I'm here? You didn't even consider asking me what I desired, did you? I have been expected to give and give for years. And now you want to take care of Corey so you can relax. How fair is any of this?" I was so frustrated that my voice broke. "You're making choices for me without even taking my life's implications into account. I can't just put everything on hold for Corey and act as though my dreams are unimportant." I let out all of my pent-up frustrations, feeling left out for years. I've been told for years that I should prioritize Corey, observing them satisfy her every need for years. I was supposed to quietly cheer from the sidelines, though. My parents were always trying to talk me out of being so egotistical and careless. It was like they expected me to fall in line and accept the life I never planned for, just because they thought it was what was best for Corey. So since last week, I have been straight up ignoring my parents. All I feel for them is resentment. Aita, if I report my parents for stealing my trust fund and using it on my sister. Update 1. Wow, this post has blown up in a few hours. Thanks to all your advice. I'm currently on my way to tell my grandparents everything, since the trust fund came from their money. I feel it's important to have their support as I address this situation. After explaining everything to them, I plan to let my grandparents take the lead in deciding what we should do next. I trust their judgment and know they'll have my best interests in mind as we figure out how to handle this together. The reason I had kept my mouth shut all this time was because I honestly thought my parents would eventually come around, but clearly they haven't. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, so I did tell my grandparents everything. Like me, they were shocked when they found out that my parents had used my trust fund without my permission. That same week, everything came to a head when my grandparents came to confront my parents about what had happened with my trust fund. My grandparents had worked hard to set up that fund for both me and Corey, and they had been deeply invested in ensuring we would have the financial support we needed for our futures. So they were understandably angry at my parents for illegally using the funds behind their backs. My mom and dad responded by telling them the same sob story they had shared with me. They explained once again how they had been forced to use the money for Corey's care and therapies. They asked my grandparents to understand why they had done what they did, as though their reasoning would somehow make it all right. But my grandfather wasn't having any of it. He yelled at them, his voice full of frustration and disbelief. He told them in no uncertain terms that they were responsible for paying the full amount of the trust fund regardless of the circumstances or the reasons they had for using it. It was evident that he felt betrayed by my parents' behavior, and his wrath was palpable. For a minute, I thought maybe they'd finally take responsibility and set things right. Then my mother, appearing worried, came to my grandparents and started pleading with them. She mentioned how taking care of Corey wasn't simple and how her needs were great and continual. She stated that Corey's trust money just wasn't enough to support the growing costs of her therapies and the continuing bills. She claimed that spending money from my trust fund helped them take care of Corey. And then, in an almost cruel turn of circumstances, my parents turned against me. They reprimanded me for telling everything to my grandparents. They were enraged that I had revealed their activities and forced them face the repercussions. My dad, in particular, was outraged and told me with a strong edge to his voice that I should count myself lucky since I was born normal. Unlike Corey, and that I should not detest my sister so much. It was as if my entire existence, my hardships, my personal wants, didn't matter at all. All that mattered was Corey, and I was being punished for not falling in line with the role they had selected for me. Without thinking, I simply looked them dead in the eye and told them straight up that if they didn't give me back the money I was due, I would sue them and make sure they went to jail for what they had done. I reminded them that what they had done was unlawful and there was no way they could explain their acts in court. They were unable to demonstrate that the trust fund was intended for me and me alone. The remarks were hard and unambiguous, yet I spoke in a calm tone. My parents' features were devoid of color as they took in what I had spoken. I could see the astonishment in their eyes since it was the first time I had really stood up for myself. They weren't used to my being so straightforward and determined. Fortunately, my grandparents nodded in agreement in the meanwhile. They knew I was correct, thus they were on my side. Seeing their encouragement, I went on speaking more firmly now. It didn't matter how much my parents had done for Corey, or how much they had spent on her, I told them. I didn't have to give up my future for Corey because she was their child. Of course, I would always be there for Corey because I loved her, but I wasn't willing to sacrifice my own life, my schooling, or my goals to ensure that she was taken care of. I expressed my frustration that she was always taking precedence over me, and that I was sick of being ignored while her wants were met. I said I was done with them at the end. The invisible kid who was supposed to meekly take whatever crumbs were left for her was not how I wanted to be treated anymore. In my life, for the first time, I knew I couldn't take it back when I finally spoke up for myself. I refused to allow my parents to continue to dictate my life and destiny since they had driven me to this breaking point. My dad objected right away that I couldn't threaten them with jail time, his voice full of rage and incredulity. He asserted that given everything they have done for me over the years, I should feel a certain amount of familial devotion as their kid and be ready to help them at all times. His purpose was to remind me of my obligation to them and to make me feel bad. In an attempt to defuse the issue, my mother even added that I could just accept the fact that 10% of my trust fund was still available and remain quiet. I had the impression that they were treating me like a charity case, as though I just deserved the scraps of my trust fund and should forget about anything else. My grandfather, however, was not going to back down. In a forceful and determined voice, he stepped in and threatened to hire the best attorney in town so I could sue my parents if they didn't agree to reimburse me the whole money. My parents appeared to be greatly affected by the possibility of legal action. When they saw my grandfather was serious, they eventually went silent. They grudgingly acknowledged that what they had done was wrong after a heated back and forth. Nevertheless, they requested some time for my grandparents to consider the situation. But the consequences didn't stop there. My dad was furious with me for telling my grandparents about them and for threatening to put him and my mother in jail. He informed me in a fit of rage that he would never again want to see my face. He told me that he was done supporting a self-centered someone like me, who could betray their own family in this way, and he requested me to leave his home. My grandparents instantly volunteered to let me live with them after hearing this. They assured me that I would always have a home with them and that they would help me in every way they could while I determined what to do next. I packed up my belongings, grabbed my vital papers, and left my parents' house without giving it a second thought. I live with my grandparents at the moment. I'm happy to be away from my parents, even if I hate that they just threw me out. I really do miss Corey. I don't regret sticking up for myself, even though I know that what I did has permanently damaged my connection with my family. Update 3. My previous update was a month ago. My grandfather's lawyer drafted an agreement that my parents eventually signed after much persuasion and threats of legal action. The conditions were simple. They would make installments over the following 18 months because they couldn't pay back the entire money they had stolen from me in one go. This would spare their finances from being severely strained all at once and give them time to pay off the debt gradually. However, the agreement also included a crucial clause that would apply if they didn't follow through at all, or if they didn't make any payments by the scheduled date. My grandparents and I both have the right to file a lawsuit immediately away. This clause served as a protection, ensuring that they couldn't evade paying me back. I continue to enrage my parents. They feel as though they are unable to let go of the guilt or anger they are harboring, and they hold me responsible for all that has occurred. They still don't get the reasons for my actions and the extreme measures I used to defend myself. However, in spite of their animosity, my grandma has been telling me that I am not to blame for all of this. She told me once more today that I should concentrate on the here and now rather than the past, and that I took the necessary actions to safeguard my future and myself. Regarding Corey, I do occasionally see her. I also miss her, and she misses me. She frequently inquires about me from my parents, and while it's obvious that she doesn't fully comprehend the circumstances, she is aware enough to realize that a significant event occurred between us. She has noticed that I'm not around as much these days, and that my folks did something that caused me pain. Despite everything, it's devastating that we can't convince her of our parents' terrible nature. I will be there for her no matter what.